Millionaire sees a homeless woman with twins, then recognizes his first love in shock. He had it all: money, power, a name that made the world bow. But tonight, the past is about to bring him to his knees. His first love, the woman he abandoned, and the two children by her side, they have his eyes. Then, Ethan pushes open the car door and steps into the rain. Heart pounding, Emily looks up, her body tensing. Their eyes meet. Time freezes. What are you doing here? The past never stays buried. And some mistakes? They come back with a heartbeat. Ethan Montgomery, a millionaire with everything except happiness, never expected that a simple red light would change his life forever. The moment he sees Emily, the woman he abandoned years ago, huddled on the streets with two little girls, his world shatters. But the real shock? The children are his. Emily, hardened by years of struggle, wants nothing to do with him. But with nowhere else to turn, she accepts his offer for one night of shelter. One night turns into a battle of old wounds, painful truths, and a war against those who seek to rip their family apart, including Ethan's ruthless father and Emily's manipulative ex. As Ethan fights against his past mistakes, the Montgomery legacy, and a legal battle for his daughters, he realizes one thing: no amount of wealth can replace love. And this time, he's ready to risk everything to reclaim the family he never knew he needed. But will Emily ever trust him again? Or is his love too little, too late? A story of redemption, second chances, and a billionaire's fight for the only thing that truly matters: family. Watch until the end, because this love story will leave you breathless. Hello everyone, I'm the narrator. Today, I bring you a millionaire love story. A love that rises above all challenges, where hearts find each other in a world of luxury. True wealth isn't just money. It's love that lasts. Do you believe in destined love? If so, like, share, comment, and subscribe to Millionaire Love Stories for more heart-touching stories. Now, let's step into this story together. Script outline from Ethan's perspective: a billionaire's redemption journey. A man who has everything but feels empty. The city was alive with neon lights, casting their electric glow onto the streets below. From the tinted windows of his black luxury car, Ethan Montgomery watched the world blur past him. The sleek vehicle hummed quietly as it cut through the night, the city's energy a stark contrast to the emptiness in his chest. A billionaire at 34, Ethan had everything a man could want: money, power, and influence. He was the CEO of Montgomery Enterprises, a name that commanded respect and fear in equal measure. The world saw him as a man who had conquered everything, but no one saw the loneliness he carried. The car slowed to a stop at a red light. Ethan leaned back against the leather seat, exhaling. The night had been like every other: another business meeting, another deal sealed, another round of hollow congratulations. He had spent the evening at an upscale gala, surrounded by beautiful women, expensive wine, and empty conversations. It was a routine he had perfected, a life he had chosen. But lately, something had been gnawing at him. A sense of restlessness, a feeling that no matter how much he achieved, something was missing. His phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. Another message from a model he barely remembered meeting. He ignored it. What was the point? They were all the same, attracted to his wealth, his name, his power. None of them actually saw him. The light turned green, but his driver hesitated. "Sir, there's something up ahead." Ethan frowned, looking up. Across the street, under the dim glow of a flickering street lamp, a woman sat on the sidewalk, holding two children close. She was thin, wrapped in a threadbare coat, her arms shielding the little ones from the cold. Something about her felt familiar. His gaze lowered to her hand, where a silver ring glinted in the light. A ring he knew. His breath caught. His heart pounded against his ribs as recognition slammed into him. Emily. The name whispered through his mind like a ghost from the past. The woman he had once loved. The woman he had abandoned. The sight of her now, frail, exhausted, and holding two children, made his stomach twist painfully. What had happened? How had she ended up like this? "Sir?" his driver asked, waiting for instructions. Ethan hesitated. For years, he had trained himself to keep moving forward, to never look back. He had left Emily behind, believing it was for the best. He had told himself that she would be fine, that she was better off without him. But now he saw the truth. Guilt hit him like a freight train. The woman he had once promised to love, to protect, was now sitting on the streets, struggling to keep her children warm. He couldn't just drive away. Not this time. Taking a deep breath, he opened the car door and stepped out into the cold night. Emily didn't notice him at first. She was focused on the children, tucking her coat tighter around them. The older girl, no more than 10, had her arms wrapped around the younger one. As if trying to shield her from the wind, Ethan's chest tightened at the sight. "Emily," he said softly. She froze. Slowly, she lifted her head, her tired eyes meeting his. For a moment, time seemed to stop. He saw recognition flicker across her face, followed by something else, something raw and painful. Disbelief, anger, fear. She pulled the children closer. "What are you doing here?" Her voice was hoarse, edged with exhaustion. Ethan swallowed. I didn't expect to see you. I didn't know. Didn't know what?" she snapped, her voice trembling. "Didn't know I was barely surviving? Didn't know I had children to feed? Didn't know that the life you walked away from didn't just disappear?" Each word was a blade, cutting through him with precision. He deserved every single one of them. He looked at the two children again. The younger one, a little girl with soft curls, was pressed against Emily's chest, eyes wide and wary. The older girl, standing protectively in front of them, had sharp, familiar features. His features. A realization struck him so hard it left him breathless. "Are they?" His voice barely worked. Emily's jaw tightened. "It doesn't matter." But it did. It mattered more than anything. Ethan took a step closer. But she flinched, pulling the children back. That reaction hurt more than he expected. He had to do something. "Emily, please," he said, his voice softer now. "Let me help. Just for tonight. Let me give you and the kids a warm place to stay." She stared at him, torn between pride and desperation. He could see it, the battle waging inside her. She wanted to refuse. She wanted to push him away. But she had two children who needed warmth, who needed food, who needed safety. Finally, she exhaled shakily. "Just one night." Ethan nodded, trying to suppress the overwhelming emotions rising inside him. This wasn't just about giving them a place to stay. This was the moment everything changed. For the first time in his life, he wasn't thinking about business deals or wealth or power. For the first time, he realized what truly mattered. And he would do anything to make it right. Session 1. Confronting the past on a cold street. Ethan stepped out of his car, the cold night air hitting him like a slap. His heart pounded in his chest as he took slow, deliberate steps toward Emily and the children. He wasn't sure what he expected, relief, gratitude, but the moment her eyes met his, all he saw was pure, unfiltered anger. Emily pulled the children closer, shielding them with her frail frame. Her body tensed as though preparing for battle. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her voice sharp despite its exhaustion. Ethan swallowed hard. "I didn't know." "Didn't know what?" she cut in, her words laced with bitterness. "Didn't know what happened to me. Didn't know I had children to feed. Didn't know that the life you abandoned still went on without you." Each word was a blade, cutting deeper than he was prepared for. He deserved it, he knew that, but hearing it out loud, seeing the fire in her eyes, was something else entirely. His gaze flickered down to the two children pressed against her. The little girl, no older than 5, peeked up at him with wide, uncertain eyes. The older one, standing slightly in front of her sister, looked at him with a guarded expression, too knowing for someone so young. And then it hit him. Lily's face, the sharpness of her features, the familiar intensity in her gaze. She looked like him. His breath caught in his throat. "Are they?" Emily's jaw clenched. "It doesn't matter." But it did. It mattered more than anything. His gaze returned to Lily, then to Sophie, who clung to Emily like a lifeline. His children. Guilt twisted in his gut, suffocating him. How many birthdays had he missed? How many nights had they gone to sleep hungry while he sat in lavish boardrooms? "Closing billion-dollar deals? Come with me," he said suddenly. Emily scoffed. "Excuse me? Just for tonight. You and the kids need a warm place to sleep. Let me help." "Help?" Emily let out a hollow laugh. "That's rich coming from you." Ethan exhaled, forcing himself to remain calm. "I know you have no reason to trust me. But let me do this. Just for tonight." Emily hesitated. She didn't want to accept anything from him. He could see it in the way her fingers tightened around the children's shoulders, in the way her body remained tense. as if preparing for him to pull the rug out from under her again. But she wasn't alone anymore. She had them. She looked down at Sophie, whose lips had started to turn pale from the cold. Then at Lily, who was trying her best to look unbothered but whose small hands were trembling. Her pride was strong, but her love for them was stronger. Finally, she exhaled. Just one night, Ethan didn't let himself smile. He just nodded and gestured toward the car. Let's go. The drive was silent. Emily sat in the back, holding Sophie close while Lily stared out the window. Ethan kept glancing at them through the rearview mirror, his grip on the steering wheel tightening with every glance. He wanted to say something, to break the unbearable tension, but he didn't know where to start. You live in a place like this? Lily's voice finally broke the silence as they drove through the grand gates of the Montgomery estate. Ethan hesitated. Yes. Lily let out a small scoff, shaking her head as she stared at the massive mansion ahead. Figures. Emily shot her a look, but Ethan spoke before she could. What do you mean? Lily turned her sharp gaze toward him. I mean, you get to live in a palace while my mom had to fight just to keep us alive. Ethan flinched. He had no defense, no words to make it right. Lily, Emily said softly, but the girl shook her head and turned back to the window. Ethan clenched his jaw and pulled into the driveway. The moment the car stopped, Emily reached for the door handle. Come on, girls, let's just get this over with. The inside of the mansion was warm, a stark contrast to the freezing streets they had come from. A fire crackled in the grand fireplace, casting golden light across the lavish furnishings. But instead of being comforting, the warmth only emphasized how much they had been without it. Maria, the housekeeper, stepped forward, her eyes widening slightly as she took in the new arrivals. Mr. Montgomery? Ethan nodded. Please prepare a guest room. Emily tensed. We're not staying in separate rooms. We stay together. Of course, Ethan said quickly. Whatever you want. Maria nodded and hurried away, but not before casting Emily a lingering look, one filled with recognition and something else Ethan couldn't place. As Emily and the children followed Maria upstairs, Ethan stayed behind, exhaling shakily. He ran a hand through his hair, his heart still hammering. She was here. They were here. And for the first time in years, he realized just how much he had lost. Upstairs, Maria opened the door to a spacious bedroom. A king-sized bed sat in the middle, draped in soft blankets, and a fireplace crackled in the corner. Emily hesitated at the doorway, her arms tightening around Sophie. This is too much. It's just a bed, Mama, Lily said, her voice quieter now. We should take it, just for tonight. Emily let out a slow breath, then nodded. Stepping inside, she lowered Sophie onto the mattress, tucking a blanket around her small frame. Lily climbed in beside her, but as Emily turned to leave the room, the girl's voice stopped her. Where are you going? Emily glanced at the door. I need to talk to Ethan. Lily frowned. Don't let him trick you. Emily's lips pressed into a thin line. I won't. Lily didn't look convinced, but she nodded, curling up beside Sophie. Taking a deep breath, Emily stepped out into the dimly lit hallway. She found Ethan standing by the staircase, staring out the window as if lost in thought. Why did you do this? She asked, crossing her arms. He turned to face her, guilt etched deep in his features. Because I never should have left. Emily's throat tightened. And now you think you can just fix everything? Just like that? Ethan exhaled. No, but I had to try. Emily searched his face, trying to find the man she once loved. She didn't know if he was still in there. One night, Ethan, that's all this is. Ethan nodded, but something in his eyes told her he wasn't going to let her walk away this time. And deep down, she wasn't sure if she wanted to. Session 2. Returning to the place he once abandoned. The silence in the grand hallway stretched between them like a chasm. Ethan watched as Emily's eyes scanned the mansion, her fingers tightening around the fabric of her worn-out coat. She stood there, hesitant, as if stepping any further inside would trap her in a world she no longer belonged to. This was never my home, she finally murmured. Ethan swallowed hard. He had expected resistance, but hearing those words from her lips stung more than he anticipated. Just for tonight, he said again, his voice softer now. You and the kids deserve warmth. Emily let out a breath, as if trying to rid herself of the weight pressing on her chest. She nodded slightly but didn't say another word, turning to head upstairs to the room Maria had prepared for them. Ethan remained behind, standing alone in the dimly lit hallway. His hands curled into fists. He had spent years convincing himself he had made the right decision all those years ago. That walking away had been the only choice. But now, looking at Emily, at the way exhaustion clung to her like a shadow, at the quiet strength in her eyes, he realized how wrong he had been. In the guest bedroom, Emily carefully helped Sophie out of her tattered coat. The little girl shivered slightly but let out a content sigh as she curled into the soft bed, her small fingers gripping the blanket as if she couldn't believe it was real. Lily, however, stood stiffly by the window, arms crossed. You shouldn't trust him. Emily turned to face her daughter, recognizing the defiance in her eyes. She had spent years teaching Lily to be strong, to be cautious, to survive, but she had also hoped Lily wouldn't have to carry so much weight on her small shoulders. I don't trust him, Emily admitted, sitting on the edge of the bed. But I trust that you and Sophie need rest. Lily narrowed her eyes. And then what? What happens tomorrow? Emily hesitated, looking down at Sophie's sleeping form. I don't know. That wasn't the answer Lily wanted. But she said nothing more, turning back to the window. She didn't like this place. Didn't like the way Ethan looked at them, like he suddenly cared. She didn't believe in second chances. Ethan stood by his study's fireplace, a glass of whiskey untouched on the table beside him. His mind raced, replaying the night's events. He had imagined many scenarios about his life, but never had he envisioned Emily returning under these circumstances. His fingers traced the rim of his glass as memories came flooding back, the way she used to smile at him, the way she had believed in him before he had let ambition consume everything. A knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. Emily. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her face unreadable. We need to talk. Ethan nodded, gesturing toward the leather chair across from his desk. She didn't sit. I want to make one thing clear. She started, her voice steady. Just because we're here tonight doesn't mean anything has changed. Ethan exhaled, running a hand through his hair. I know. Do you? She took a step closer. Because you disappeared years ago. Ethan. And now, out of nowhere, you think you can waltz back in and fix everything? He didn't flinch at the anger in her voice. He had earned it. I don't expect forgiveness, he admitted, but I can't ignore what I saw tonight. You and the kids. They are not your kids. Her words were sharp, but there was a flicker of something else in her eyes. Ethan clenched his jaw. Are you going to lie to me about that? Emily's breath hitched, but she quickly masked it with a scoff. What does it matter now? You left. He stepped closer, closing the space between them. It matters to me. For a moment, something unspoken passed between them. Memories of what once was. The pain of what could have been. Emily looked away first, exhaling sharply. I won't let you hurt them. I don't want to hurt them. Ethan said firmly. I need to make things right. Emily let out a hollow laugh. Right, Ethan? You don't just get to decide that now. You chose this life, this empty, wealthy, perfect life, and we weren't part of it. Ethan felt the sting of her words, but he didn't back down. I was wrong. She met his gaze again, searching for something, truth, sincerity, maybe regret. That doesn't change what's already happened. I know, he admitted, but it might change what happens next. Emily sighed, shaking her head as if trying to rid herself of emotions she didn't want to feel. Just let us get through tonight, Ethan, that's all. And with that, she turned and walked away, leaving him standing there, drowning in the weight of everything he had lost. As Ethan finally headed upstairs hours later, he paused outside the guest bedroom. Through the slightly open door, he could see them, Emily asleep on the bed beside Sophie, her hand still resting protectively over her daughter. Lily was curled up at the edge of the bed, her arms wrapped tightly around herself as if afraid that if she let go, everything would disappear. A sharp pang hit Ethan's chest. This was his family, the family he had walked away from. And now, for the first time in his life, he wasn't thinking about boardrooms, deals, or success. He was thinking about them, and how he would do whatever it took to earn a place in their lives again. Session 3. Memories resurface, a promise broken. The morning light crept through the heavy curtains of the Montgomery estate, casting a soft glow across the grand bedroom where Emily and the children lay. The warmth of the bed was a stark contrast to the nights they had spent on the cold, unforgiving streets. Sophie stirred first, her small body curling deeper into the plush blankets as she let out a content sigh. Emily, however, didn't feel at ease. Her eyes opened, and for a moment, she forgot where she was. The luxury of the room, the feeling of a real bed beneath her, it all seemed so foreign. Then it hit her. She was in Ethan Montgomery's house. Her heart clenched as she carefully sat up, glancing toward Lily, who was still curled into herself. The girl was always the last to truly rest, always the most guarded. Emily ran a hand through her tangled hair, inhaling deeply to steady herself. She couldn't let herself get comfortable. Not here, not in his world. Downstairs, Ethan sat in his office, a steaming cup of coffee in front of him, untouched. His thoughts were a mess, tangled in memories of Emily and the past he had tried to bury. He remembered the first time he had told her he loved her, how she had laughed, calling him ridiculous because she had known it all along. He remembered the way she used to rest her head on his shoulder after a long day, how she made even the dullest moments feel alive. He had sworn he would always be there for her. And then he had left. A sharp knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. He looked up just as Emily stepped in, her arms crossed over her chest. "You're awake early," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Emily raised an eyebrow. "Couldn't sleep much." Ethan nodded, motioning toward the chair across from him. "Would you like some coffee?" She let out a dry chuckle. "I didn't come here for small talk." "Ethan." His jaw tightened. "Then why are you here?" Emily took a step closer, her gaze never leaving his. "Because I need to know what your plan is. You found us. You brought us here. What do you expect to happen now?" Ethan exhaled, rubbing his temples. "I don't have a plan, Emily. I couldn't leave you on the street." "And after that?" she pressed. "What, you think we can just play house? That we can pretend like none of this ever happened?" Ethan stood, pacing to the window. "Of course not. I know I can't erase the past. But I want to help." Emily let out a bitter laugh. "Help? You mean throw money at the problem? That's all you've ever done. Ethan, you run from your emotions and pay your way out of guilt." Her words struck deep, but he didn't flinch. He deserved them. "I know money won't fix this," he admitted, "but I still have a right to know the truth." Emily's breath hitched. "What truth?" Ethan turned to face her, his blue eyes piercing. "Are they mine?" The room fell silent. Emily's lips parted slightly, but no words came out. She had always known this moment would come, but she wasn't ready for it. "Tell me the truth, Emily," Ethan said, his voice low. "Are Lily and Sophie my daughters?" Her hands clenched into fists at her sides. "What does it change, Ethan? What does it matter now?" "It matters to me," he shot back, stepping toward her. "I spent years thinking I had no family. But if they are mine, then I abandoned them before they were even born. I have a right to know." Emily looked away, her body tense. "Yes," she finally whispered, "they're yours." Ethan's breath left him in a rush. He had suspected it, but hearing it confirmed was something else entirely. His knees felt weak, his mind spinning with the weight of what he had lost, what he had missed. "Why didn't you tell me?" His voice was barely above a whisper. Emily let out a shaky breath. "Because you made your choice, Ethan. You walked away. You left me alone, and I had to survive. I had to protect them." Ethan ran a hand through his hair, guilt clawing at his insides. "I didn't know, Emily. If I had, would it have changed anything?" She cut in. "Would you have stayed? Or would you have still chosen your career, your family's expectations, over us?" He had no answer, because deep down, he knew the truth. Back then, he hadn't been the man she and their daughters needed. But he wasn't that man anymore. "I can't change what I did," Ethan admitted, his voice raw, "but I can try to make it right now." Emily looked at him, truly looked at him, and for the first time, she saw something different in his eyes. Regret, determination, maybe even love. "It's too late, Ethan," she whispered, shaking her head. "You don't just get to walk back into our lives and expect everything to fall into place." "I know that," he said, "but I want a chance. Not just for me, but for them." Emily hesitated, glancing toward the doorway where, just outside, Lily was listening. Her small hands were clenched at her sides, her expression unreadable. Ethan followed Emily's gaze and saw her too. His chest ached. Lily took a deep breath, stepping forward. "I don't need you," she said quietly. "We've been fine without you." Ethan swallowed hard. "I know, and I'm not here to take anything from you. But I'd like the chance to be in your life. If you'll let me." Lily stared at him, her eyes filled with years of hurt. Then she turned to Emily. "Are we staying here?" Emily hesitated. She had promised herself she wouldn't put her daughters in a situation where they could be hurt again. But looking at Ethan now, she wasn't sure if keeping them away from him was the right choice either. "For now," she finally said. Lily didn't say anything more. She just nodded and turned away. Walking back down the hallway, Ethan exhaled slowly, his heart pounding. He had made many deals in his life, but none had ever mattered as much as this one. He wasn't just fighting for Emily's forgiveness. He was fighting for his family. And he wasn't going to lose them again. Session 4. The Secret of the Children's Father. Ethan stood frozen in place long after Lily disappeared down the hallway. The truth was out now. The children he had just met, the 2 little girls he had unknowingly abandoned, were his daughters. His daughters. The words felt foreign in his mind, yet something deep in his heart told him they had always been true. Emily was watching him, arms crossed, waiting for his reaction. "Say something," she murmured. Ethan exhaled, rubbing a hand over his face. "I don't even know where to start." Emily's gaze hardened. "That's funny. You had no problem leaving before." The bitterness in her voice cut through him, but he didn't fight it. She had every right to be angry. "I didn't know," he said quietly. "If I had." Emily let out a humorless laugh. "If you had known, what? You would have dropped everything? Given up your billion-dollar empire to Playhouse?" Ethan clenched his jaw. "You didn't even give me the chance to try." Emily shook her head. "Because you made your choice. Ethan, you walked away without looking back. I had to pick up the pieces of my life while carrying 2 lives inside me. I had to survive, and I did it without you." Silence stretched between them, thick with resentment, regret, and something else, something unspoken. "Why didn't you tell me?" he finally asked. Emily sighed, her fingers tightening around the edge of the kitchen counter. "Because I knew what would happen. Your father would have buried the truth. You would have been forced to choose between us and your family's fortune. And I already knew what choice you'd make." Ethan flinched at the truth in her words. His father, Charles Montgomery, had always been clear about one thing: love was a weakness. And family legacy came first. But standing here now, seeing the pain in Emily's eyes, knowing that his own children had suffered because of his past choices, Ethan felt sick. "I won't let my father control this," he said, his voice firm. "Not anymore." Emily studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. "And what exactly do you think you're going to do?" "I want to be in their lives," he said. "I want to know them. To protect them." Emily let out a slow, heavy breath. "It's not that simple." "It is to me." She shook her head, turning away. "You don't understand, Ethan. They don't need a father who's here today and gone tomorrow. They need stability, not someone who suddenly decides he wants to be part of their lives out of guilt." "It's not guilt," Ethan said, stepping closer. "It's regret. It's the realization that I made the biggest mistake of my life when I let you go. And I can't change the past. But I can fight for the future." Emily's lips pressed into a thin line. "You don't get to fight for them like this is a business deal. Ethan, they are not something you can buy back." His jaw tightened. "I know that, but I can't walk away now." Emily hesitated, her walls still firmly in place. "What happens when your family finds out?" Ethan didn't even hesitate. "I don't care." Emily scoffed. "Oh, you will. The Montgomery name means everything to your father. He will never accept us. And you know it." Ethan's hands curled into fists. "I don't need his approval." Emily shook her head. "It's not just about approval. It's about power. If Charles sees us as a threat, he will come after me, after Lily and Sophie, and he will do whatever it takes to make sure they are kept as far away from you as possible." Ethan felt a cold rage settle in his chest. He knew his father was ruthless, but the thought of him targeting Emily and their daughters made his blood boil. "I won't let that happen," he said. Emily let out a soft laugh, but it wasn't amused. "You think you can stop him?" Ethan looked at her, his gaze steady. "I will." Emily searched his face, looking for the man she had once loved. She wasn't sure if he was there, but she saw something else, a fire she hadn't seen in years. A determination that hadn't been there when he had walked away all those years ago. She didn't know if she could trust it, but for the sake of their daughters, she had to find out. Before she could say anything else, a knock at the front door made them both turn. Ethan's body tensed. Emily frowned. Who would? Another knock, this time louder. Emily moved toward the door, but Ethan held out an arm, stopping her. "Let me." She hesitated but stepped back as he pulled open the door. Standing on the doorstep, dressed in an expensive suit and wearing a smug smile, was Ryan. Ethan's stomach dropped. Ryan's gaze flickered past Ethan, landing on Emily inside. His smirk widened. Well, looks like I finally found you." Emily inhaled sharply, instinctively stepping back. Ethan's entire body went rigid. "What the hell are you doing here?" Ryan adjusted his cuffs, looking completely at ease. "Relax, Montgomery. I'm just here for what's mine." Ethan's pulse thundered in his ears. "You have nothing here." Ryan let out a low chuckle. "That's where you're wrong." His gaze slid back to Emily. "We need to talk." Emily's fingers curled into fists. "I have nothing to say to you." Ryan sighed dramatically. "Come on, sweetheart. Don't make this difficult. We both know the truth. Those kids? They're mine." Ethan saw red. Before he could react, Emily stepped forward, her voice dangerously calm. "You lost the right to claim them the day you walked away." Ryan tsked. "Did I? Because I have a lawyer who says otherwise." Ethan stepped between them, his body taut with anger. "If you think for 1 second that you can take them away, you're going to regret it." Ryan tilted his head, smirking. "We'll see about that." Emily's hands trembled, but her voice remained steady. "Get out." Ryan held up his hands in mock surrender. "I'll be back." His smirk widened. "With paperwork." With that, he turned on his heel and walked away, leaving a tense silence in his wake. Ethan clenched his fists, his jaw tight. He's not going to win. Emily exhaled shakily. "You don't know what he's capable of." Ethan looked at her, his gaze filled with promise. "Then I'll show him what I'm capable of." Emily swallowed hard, because for the first time in years, she almost believed him. Session 5. The Montgomery family's opposition, a battle between heart and honor. The moment Ryan walked out that door, Ethan knew things were about to get worse. His grip on the doorknob tightened as he turned back toward Emily, who still stood frozen in place. Her hands clenched into fists. Her breathing was uneven, her shoulders tense. "Are you okay?" Ethan asked quietly. Emily blinked, snapping herself out of the daze Ryan had left her in. "He won't stop," she muttered. "He always finds a way to get what he wants." Ethan stepped closer, his jaw tight. "Then I'll make sure he doesn't." Emily shook her head, her voice hollow. "You don't understand, Ethan. He doesn't just want control, he enjoys watching people suffer." "And your family? They're just as bad." Ethan stiffened at her words. "I'm not my father." Emily let out a dry laugh. "Maybe not, but you were once willing to do anything to please him." The truth of it stung. Ethan had spent his entire life trying to live up to Charles Montgomery's expectations. His father was a man who valued power above all else. A man who saw love as nothing more than a liability. And once upon a time, Ethan had believed him. But now, with Emily and their daughters standing before him, he realized just how much of his life he had wasted chasing after something hollow. A loud knock suddenly echoed through the house, shattering the moment. Ethan and Emily exchanged glances before Ethan turned toward the door, his body tensing. He had a bad feeling about this. When he pulled the door open, his suspicions were confirmed. Charles Montgomery stood on the porch, dressed in one of his custom-tailored suits, his silver hair slicked back, his expression as cold as ever. Behind him, 2 of his personal security guards stood like statues, their presence a silent threat. Ethan's chest tightened. "What are you doing here?" Charles didn't even flinch. "I should be asking you the same thing, son." His gaze swept past Ethan and landed on Emily, who had stepped forward cautiously. His lips curled in disdain. "I see you've reunited with old mistakes." Emily's eyes burned with fury, but she didn't say a word. Ethan clenched his fists. "If you came here to insult her, turn around and leave." Charles let out a low chuckle, shaking his head. "Oh, Ethan, you always were too sentimental for your own good." He took a step forward, his piercing gaze narrowing. "Do you really think this can work? That you can just bring her and those children into this house and pretend the past never happened?" Ethan's jaw locked. "That's exactly what I intend to do." Charles scoffed. "And what? You think the board will accept this? That the family name will survive the scandal of you playing house with a woman who was never meant to be part of our world?" Emily's hands curled into fists. "I was never meant to be part of your world because your world is built on control and greed." Charles turned his cold gaze toward her. And look where defying me got you. Ethan took a step forward, placing himself between Emily and his father. His voice was ice. That's enough. Charles raised an eyebrow, amused. You're actually serious about this, aren't you? He sighed dramatically. You're willing to throw away everything for her? Ethan didn't hesitate. Yes. For the first time in his life, he saw something flicker in Charles's eyes, perhaps surprise, perhaps even disappointment, but it was gone as quickly as it had come. Charles exhaled, shaking his head. You've always been a disappointment. Ethan's stomach twisted, but he forced himself to stay strong. I'd rather disappoint you than lose them again. Charles stared at him for a long moment before his expression hardened. Then consider yourself no longer part of this family. Silence fell over the entranceway. Emily sucked in a sharp breath, and Ethan felt something deep in his chest tighten, but not in the way he had expected. He had feared this moment his entire life, had spent years fighting to live up to his father's impossible standards. But now, as he stood in the doorway of his own home, looking at the man who had controlled him for so long, he felt nothing but relief. Good, Ethan said simply. Then I can finally live my life the way I want to. Charles let out a dry laugh. You think this is over? You may no longer bear my name, but you're still a Montgomery. And Montgomerys don't just walk away. Ethan crossed his arms. Watch me. Charles studied him for a long moment before finally stepping back. I hope you're ready for the war you just started. And with that, he turned on his heel, walking away with his security guards in tow. Ethan exhaled, tension draining from his shoulders as he shut the door. He turned back to Emily, who was staring at him with something unreadable in her eyes. You really did it, she whispered. Ethan met her gaze. I should have done it a long time ago. Emily searched his face, as if trying to figure out whether she could believe him. After a moment, she sighed. This isn't over, you know. Ethan nodded. I know. Emily hesitated before stepping forward. Then let's make sure we win. Ethan stared at her, a small smile tugging at his lips. He had spent years believing he had lost her forever. But now, for the first time, he saw a glimmer of something he never thought he'd have again. Hope. And he wasn't going to waste it. Session 6. Ryan returns. A man WHO wants control. Not family. The day after Ethan severed ties with his father, the atmosphere in the Montgomery estate remained tense. Emily didn't know what was coming next, but she knew Charles Montgomery wasn't the kind of man to let things go so easily. Neither was Ryan, and she was right. Ryan showed up in the afternoon, unannounced, as he always did when he wanted to assert dominance. The moment the butler opened the door, Emily felt her stomach churn. Ryan's presence always carried the weight of manipulation and control, and seeing him now, leaning against the doorframe with his signature smirk, made her skin crawl. Hello, sweetheart, Ryan greeted smoothly, his eyes flickering past her into the house. You've done well for yourself, haven't you? Emily immediately stepped into the doorway, blocking his view inside. What do you want, Ryan? His smirk widened. Now, is that any way to greet the father of your children? Ethan appeared in an instant, stepping beside Emily, his stance protective. You don't get to call yourself that. Ryan raised an eyebrow, clearly amused. And here I thought you weren't interested in playing daddy. He clicked his tongue. Guess you changed your mind. Ethan's jaw tightened. I know what you're doing. Ryan, cut to the chase. Ryan sighed dramatically. Fine, since you insist. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope, holding it up between two fingers. This is a legal petition. I'm filing for custody of Lily and Sophie. Emily's blood ran cold. You can't be serious. Oh, I'm very serious. Ryan replied smoothly. You see, I've been looking into your little situation. Emily, turns out, there are a lot of records showing how unfit of a mother you've been, no stable home, struggling to provide for them, constantly on the move, and now, here you are, shacking up with a billionaire like some fairy tale princess. His expression darkened. The court is going to love this story. Ethan's hands curled into fists. You don't care about those kids. You never have. Ryan gave an exaggerated sigh. Maybe, but the courts don't know that. Emily stepped forward, her voice low and dangerous. You were never there for them. Ryan, never. You don't get to walk in now and pretend to care. Ryan leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. You know how this works. Emily, it's not about what's true. It's about what I can prove. He flicked the envelope against his palm. "And I have enough to make you look like an unfit mother. You think the system is fair? It favors the man with money and influence. And guess what?" His smirk returned. "I have both." Emily's breath came out uneven. But before she could speak, Ethan did. "So do I." Ryan's eyes flickered toward him. "Ah, but you see, the difference is, I know how to play dirty." Ethan stepped even closer, his voice like steel. "And I know how to win." For the first time, Ryan's smirk faltered slightly. Just slightly, but enough for Ethan to know that he had hit a nerve. Ryan cleared his throat and straightened his jacket. "We'll see, won't we?" He dropped the envelope on the small table beside the entrance. "You have until the court date to prepare. I suggest you use your resources wisely." Emily watched him turn, her stomach twisting as he casually strolled back toward his car as if he had already won. The moment the front door shut, she felt her entire body sag. Ethan caught her arm, steadying her. "He's bluffing." Emily let out a bitter laugh. "Ryan doesn't bluff." Ethan's grip tightened slightly. "Then we'll fight." Emily looked up at him, searching his face. "Why are you doing this?" He frowned slightly. "Because they're my daughters." Emily shook her head. "No, Ethan, why are you really doing this? Is it guilt? Is it to prove something to yourself?" Ethan exhaled, his fingers brushing against her wrist. "Because I lost you once. And I refuse to lose them." Emily's throat tightened. "Ethan, I know I can't fix the past," he said softly, cutting her off, "but I can fight for their future." Emily looked away, her emotions warring inside her. Part of her wanted to push him away, to tell him that she had done this alone for so long. That she didn't need him. But the truth was, she was tired. And for the first time in a long time, she wasn't fighting alone. That night, after putting the girls to bed, Emily sat on the edge of the massive bed in the guest room, staring at the legal documents Ryan had left behind. Every word felt like a threat, a reminder of how easily things could be ripped away from her. A soft knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. Ethan stepped in, his expression unreadable. "You should get some sleep." Emily scoffed. Easier said than done. Ethan sat beside her, careful to keep some space between them. "We'll fight this. Ryan is good at manipulating people. But I have better lawyers." Emily turned to face him. "And what if money isn't enough? What if he wins?" Ethan met her gaze, his expression turning resolute. "Then we make sure he doesn't." Emily exhaled shakily. "I can't lose them, Ethan." He hesitated, then reached out, covering her hand with his own. "You won't." Emily didn't pull away, and for the first time, she let herself believe him. Outside, the wind howled against the windows, a storm brewing in the distance. But inside, for the first time in a long time, Emily didn't feel alone in the fight. Session 7. A tense courtroom battle. Ethan uses his power to shield Emily. The courtroom was packed. The air inside was thick with tension, the kind that pressed against Emily's chest and made it hard to breathe. She sat stiffly in her chair, her hands clasped tightly together as she glanced at Ethan beside her. His jaw was set, his expression unreadable, but she could feel the quiet fury rolling off him in waves. Across the room, Ryan lounged in his seat, far too relaxed for a man claiming to care about his daughters. His expensive suit, smug smirk, and the cocky way he leaned back in his chair made Emily's stomach churn. This wasn't about love or family for him. It never had been. This was about control, about power. The judge entered, and everyone rose before taking their seats again. The woman seated at the bench was older, her face lined with experience, her eyes sharp and assessing as she scanned the room. "We are here today to determine the custody arrangement for Lily and Sophie Montgomery," she began, flipping through the thick stack of papers in front of her. "Mr. Ryan Calloway has filed for sole custody of the children, claiming that their current guardian, Ms. Emily Carter, is unfit to provide them with a stable home." Emily swallowed hard, but Ethan's hand lightly brushed against hers under the table, a silent reassurance. Ryan's attorney stood first, a sharp-looking man in his 50s. He adjusted his tie and stepped forward. "Your Honor, my client is a well-established businessman with financial stability and the means to provide these children with a life of security and comfort. In contrast, Ms. Carter has spent years struggling with homelessness, unable to provide her children with even the most basic necessities." Emily's stomach twisted. That much was true, but it wasn't the whole truth. Ryan's attorney continued, Furthermore, it has come to light that Ms. Carter has recently moved into the Montgomery estate with Mr. Ethan Montgomery, the biological father of the children. This raises concerns about the stability of the environment and whether this is simply a reactionary decision rather than a long-term solution. Emily's hands clenched into fists. He was twisting everything. The judge turned to Emily's attorney. Ms. Carter, how do you respond to these claims? Emily's lawyer, a composed woman named Olivia Hayes, stood. Your Honor, while it is true that my client faced hardships, she has never once abandoned or neglected her children. She has fought to keep them safe and cared for, even in the most difficult circumstances. Ryan scoffed, but Olivia ignored him, continuing, additionally, we have evidence that Mr. Calloway was absent from the children's lives entirely until now, showing no interest in their well-being. His sudden claim of concern raises the question, why now? Ethan leaned forward, because he sees them as something to win, not as children to love. Ryan's lawyer objected. Speculation, Your Honor. The judge nodded, sustained. She then turned to Ryan. Mr. Calloway, why are you only now stepping forward? Ryan adjusted his cuffs, putting on a well-rehearsed expression of concern. Your Honor, I was unaware of the extent of their struggles. Had I known, I would have stepped in sooner. I only want what's best for my daughters. Ethan's patience snapped. That's a lie. You knew exactly where Emily was. You just didn't care. Ryan's smug expression faltered just a bit. Excuse me? Ethan's lawyer, Daniel Mercer, stood. Your Honor, we have testimony from multiple sources confirming that Mr. Calloway had knowledge of Emily Carter's situation and made no effort to help. Instead, he has a history of manipulation, using the legal system as a means of exerting control. We would like to present Exhibit A. A court clerk handed a folder to the judge. She flipped through the pages, her frown deepening. Olivia stood. These are financial records showing that Mr. Calloway recently received a large sum of money from Charles Montgomery, Ethan Montgomery's father. This payment was made suspiciously close to the date when Mr. Calloway filed for custody. Murmurs erupted in the courtroom. The judge's expression hardened as she looked at Ryan. Mr. Calloway, do you have an explanation for this? Ryan shifted in his seat. Business transactions are private matters. Your Honor. The judge narrowed her eyes. Not when they relate to a custody case. Are you telling me that this money had nothing to do with your decision to file for custody? Ryan hesitated just a fraction too long. Ethan pressed on. This was never about the children for you, was it? It was about leverage, about power. My father is using you to try and break Emily, and you're too weak to stand on your own. Ryan's lawyer objected again, but the damage had been done. The shift in the room was undeniable. The judge leaned forward. I've seen enough. She turned to Emily. Ms. Carter, do you wish to retain full custody of your children? Emily's voice was strong, unwavering. Yes, Your Honor. The judge nodded, then looked at Ethan. Mr. Montgomery, are you seeking legal guardianship as the children's biological father? Ethan took a deep breath. Yes. The judge tapped her fingers against the desk. Deep in thought, based on the evidence provided, it is clear that Mr. Calloway's motives are not in the best interest of the children. His financial ties to Charles Montgomery raise concerns about external influence in this case. Therefore, I am ruling in favor of Ms. Carter, with joint legal guardianship awarded to Mr. Montgomery. The weight lifted from Emily's chest in an instant. Ryan shot to his feet. You can't be serious. The judge's voice was firm. This is my final ruling. Mr. Calloway, if you pursue any further legal action, I suggest you come back with a legitimate case and not one built on bribery. Ryan's face turned red with fury, but he had no choice but to sit back down. Fuming, Ethan turned to Emily, exhaling in relief. It's over. Emily wasn't sure if she believed it just yet, but as she glanced at Ryan, who looked like a man who had just lost a game he thought was rigged, she knew one thing. For the first time in years, she and her daughters were safe. And for the first time, she wasn't facing the fight alone. Session 8. The Truth Uncovered. Ethan turns the tables. The courtroom ruling had been a victory, but Ethan knew better than to believe it was truly over. Ryan wasn't the type to accept defeat, and Charles Montgomery wasn't the kind of man to let go of a fight so easily. Ethan expected retaliation, and he was right. 2 days after the hearing, Ethan sat in his office reviewing a report his private investigator had delivered. The information in the file was damning. Ryan had skeletons, more than Ethan had anticipated. Emily walked into the room, her arms crossed. "You wanted to talk?" Ethan looked up, his jaw set. "Ryan isn't done with us." Emily exhaled sharply. "I figured as much. What did you find?" Ethan slid the file across the desk. "Proof that Ryan has been lying about everything. He's been under investigation for financial fraud. And worse, there's evidence of illegal gambling and laundering money through his businesses. If we take this to the authorities, he won't just lose the custody battle. He'll lose everything." Emily's breath caught. "And you just happened to have this information?" Ethan leaned back. "I make it a habit of knowing who my enemies are." Emily hesitated. "So what now? We hand this over to the police?" Ethan's expression darkened. "Not yet." Before Emily could ask what he meant, the butler appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Montgomery, there's someone at the gate requesting to see you." "It's Ryan Calloway." Emily stiffened. Ethan's expression didn't change. "Let him in." "What?" Emily hissed. "Are you serious?" Ethan stood. "I want to hear what he has to say." Minutes later, Ryan strolled into the study, looking less smug than usual. He was still dressed in his tailored suit, but there was something off about him. His confidence had a crack in it now. "Ethan," Ryan greeted, forcing a smirk. "Emily, always a pleasure." "Cut the act." "Ryan," Ethan said coldly. "Why are you here?" Ryan clicked his tongue, eyeing the two of them. "Can't a father visit the people who stole his children from him?" Emily stepped forward, her voice sharp. "You don't get to call yourself their father. You were never there for them. And now, the courts have made it clear, you have no claim to them." Ryan chuckled, but there was no amusement in his eyes. "You think this is over?" He turned to Ethan. "You think because you won this round that you're safe? That she's safe?" Ethan's patience snapped. "I know exactly who you are, Ryan, and I know exactly what you've done." Ryan's smirk faltered slightly. "What the hell are you talking about?" Ethan picked up the file from the desk and tossed it in front of Ryan. "I know about the fraud, the illegal gambling, the money laundering. I know about the deals you've made with criminals to cover your losses. And guess what? So will the authorities." Ryan's face paled as he flipped through the pages. "Where did you get this?" Ethan took a step closer, his voice low and deadly. "Did you really think I wouldn't dig into you? Did you really think I'd let you waltz into our lives and threaten my family without consequences?" Ryan clenched his jaw. "You think you can blackmail me?" Ethan smirked. "Oh, no, I don't need to blackmail you, Ryan, I just need to make a call." He picked up his phone, his finger hovering over the dial button. "Unless, of course, you want to make a deal." Ryan swallowed hard. "What kind of deal?" Ethan's eyes burned with intensity. "You walk away. For good. You leave Emily and the girls alone. And in return, I won't destroy what's left of your life." He leaned in slightly. "But if you ever so much as breathe in their direction again, I'll make sure you spend the rest of your days rotting in a prison cell." Ryan was silent. He glanced at Emily, but she had nothing but hatred in her eyes. For the first time, Ryan looked like a man who had finally realized he had lost. He exhaled sharply, shaking his head. "Fine, you win." Ethan didn't move. "I want it in writing. You'll sign over any parental claims and agree to legally sever all ties to Lily and Sophie." Ryan let out a bitter laugh. "You really think I'd fight for kids I never wanted? You can have them." He straightened his jacket, his expression twisted with resentment. "But don't fool yourself, Montgomery. You may have won this battle, but you'll always be just another pawn in your father's world." Ethan's expression didn't change. "I'm not my father, and you won't be around to find out what I become." Ryan shook his head in disgust, then turned and walked out without another word. As the door shut behind him, Emily let out a slow, shaky breath. "I can't believe it's over." Ethan turned to her, his expression softer now. "It is." Emily met his gaze. "How can you be so sure?" Ethan reached out, gently taking her hand. "Because I won't let anyone take you or the girls away from me again." Emily's breath hitched. She wanted to pull away, to remind herself that she had learned to survive on her own. But for the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe in the man standing before her. For the first time, she didn't feel alone in the fight. And maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to be anymore. Session 9. Ethan proposes, a true family at last. The tension that had gripped their lives for so long had finally begun to fade. With Ryan out of the picture and Charles Montgomery's influence weakening, The storm that had once threatened to rip them apart had passed. But for Ethan, the fight wasn't over. He wasn't just fighting for custody anymore. He was fighting for something even bigger, his family. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden hues across the Montgomery estate, Ethan stood in the garden, hands in his pockets, watching as Lily and Sophie played in the grass. Their laughter echoed through the air, free and unburdened, as if they had finally found peace. Emily stood a few steps away, arms wrapped around herself as she watched them too. She looked lighter, as if the weight she had been carrying for years had finally begun to lift. Ethan took a slow breath and turned toward her. "Emily." She glanced at him, offering a small smile. Can we talk?" His voice was steady, but his heart pounded in his chest. Emily hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Of course." Ethan gestured toward a stone bench beneath the old oak tree. As they sat down, the air between them felt charged, different from the tension of past arguments. But something more significant, more raw. Ethan exhaled. "I know we've been through hell. And I know I don't deserve to ask for anything more than what we have now. But I need to say this." Emily turned to him, her expression unreadable. "Ethan, let me finish." He interrupted gently. "I spent years chasing things that never really mattered. Power, money, success. I thought they would fill the void inside me. But none of it did. Because the one thing I truly needed, the one thing that could have made my life whole, was you." Emily's breath caught, but she said nothing. Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Emily's eyes widened. "Ethan." He slowly opened the box, revealing a ring. It wasn't the largest or the most extravagant ring money could buy. But it was perfect, simple, elegant, and timeless. Ethan took a deep breath. "I don't just want to be in Lily and Sophie's lives as their father. I want to be in their lives as your husband. I want to be the man who wakes up next to you every morning. The one who stands by your side no matter what comes next." Emily swallowed hard, her hands trembling. "Ethan, this is a lot." "I know," he admitted, "and I know I hurt you. That I left when I should have stayed. But I swear to you, I will spend the rest of my life making up for it if you'll let me." Tears welled in Emily's eyes. She had spent years building walls around her heart, protecting herself from disappointment, from heartbreak, and yet, here Ethan was, breaking through those walls, piece by piece, with every word, every action, proving to her that maybe, just maybe, he was the man she had once believed him to be. She looked down at the ring, her heart pounding. "You don't have to say yes now," Ethan continued softly. "Just tell me you'll think about it. That you'll let yourself believe in us again." Emily let out a shaky laugh. "Ethan, I already believe in you. If I didn't, I wouldn't still be here." Hope flickered in Ethan's chest. "Then marry me." Emily's gaze lifted to his, searching his face, and in that moment, she realized something. She wasn't afraid anymore. She had spent so long surviving, so long running, but with Ethan, she didn't have to run anymore. Slowly, she reached for the ring, and then she nodded. "Yes." Ethan's breath left him in a rush, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Yes?" Emily let out a teary laugh. "Yes, Ethan." Without hesitation, Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger and pulled her into his arms, holding her as if he never wanted to let go again. A small giggle broke through the moment, and they turned to see Lily and Sophie watching them with wide, excited eyes. "Did you just propose?" Sophie squealed. Lily crossed her arms, smirking. "Took you long enough." Ethan let out a laugh, pulling both girls into the embrace. "I guess I was waiting for the perfect moment." Sophie clapped her hands. "So does this mean we're a real family now?" Emily smiled, brushing a tear from her cheek as she looked at Ethan. "Yeah, baby, it does." Ethan pressed a kiss to Emily's forehead before looking down at the two little girls, the daughters he had almost lost. The family he had almost let slip through his fingers. "I promise," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I will never let you go again." And for the first time in his life, Ethan Montgomery truly felt whole. Session 10. A home. A future together. The morning after Ethan's proposal, everything felt different. Emily woke up in the Montgomery estate for the first time without feeling like an outsider. The weight of uncertainty that had been pressing on her for years had finally lifted. She rolled over, finding Sophie still curled up beside her, the little girl's steady breathing a soft reminder of the peace they had finally found. A gentle knock on the door made her sit up. She glanced toward it just as Ethan peeked inside. "Good morning." Emily smiled sleepily. "Morning." He stepped inside, balancing a tray of coffee, toast, and fruit. "I figured you could use a slow morning." Emily let out a small laugh. "This is dangerously close to being romantic." "Montgomery." Ethan smirked, setting the tray down. "What can I say? I'm a changed man." Emily reached for the coffee, taking a small sip before glancing at him. "Are you really?" Ethan's expression turned serious. "I'd like to think so." She studied him, the man who had once walked away from her. The man who had returned not just to claim responsibility but to fight for them. And now, the man who had asked her to be his wife. Emily exhaled, setting the coffee cup back on the tray. "I want to believe this will last, Ethan, that this isn't just some grand gesture you'll regret once reality sets in." Ethan reached for her hand, his thumb brushing gently against her skin. "I won't regret it, and I don't expect you to just take my word for it. I'll show you, every day, for the rest of my life." Emily's heart clenched, but in the best way. "You really mean that?" He nodded. "Yeah, I do." A soft voice interrupted them. "Are we having breakfast in bed?" Emily and Ethan both turned to see Sophie rubbing her eyes, her curls messy from sleep. Ethan chuckled, reaching for her. "Come here, Munchkin, you get breakfast in bed, too." Sophie giggled as he pulled her into his lap. And for a moment, Emily just watched them. Watched the ease with which Ethan held their daughter. The way he looked at her like she was his whole world. Lily appeared in the doorway next, arms crossed but with a small smirk on her face. "So, what's today's big event? Another dramatic revelation? A secret twin? What?" Ethan snorted. "No more surprises, I promise. Just a normal day." Lily raised an eyebrow. "A normal day? In this house? That'll be a first." Emily smiled, patting the spot beside her. "Come here, kiddo. Let's enjoy it while we can." For the first time in what felt like forever, there were no threats looming over them. No court battles. No enemies waiting to strike. Just them. A real family. That evening, Ethan stood on the balcony, watching the sunset cast golden hues across the estate. Emily stepped beside him, leaning on the railing, her shoulder brushing his. "We did it," she murmured. Ethan nodded. "Yeah, we did." She turned to him, studying his face in the fading light. "You know, for a long time, I thought I was alone in all of this. That no one would ever stand beside me." Ethan reached for her hand. "You're not alone anymore, Emily. You never will be." Tears prickled at her eyes, but she didn't look away. "I believe you." Ethan squeezed her hand gently. "Good, because this is just the beginning." She let out a breathless laugh. "God, that almost sounds like a threat." Ethan smirked, more like a promise. Emily leaned into him, resting her head against his shoulder as they watched the sky darken into twilight. For the first time, she wasn't afraid of the future. Because for the first time, she wasn't facing it alone. A billionaire finds his greatest treasure. The Montgomery estate was no longer just a house. It had become a home. The once hollow, empty halls were now filled with laughter. The echoes of Sophie's playful giggles and Lily's sarcastic remarks making the mansion feel warmer than it ever had before. The tension that once gripped their lives had lifted, replaced by a sense of belonging that none of them had dared to dream of. Ethan had never known what it truly meant to have a family, not until now. One afternoon, he stood in the backyard, watching as Lily and Sophie ran through the grass, their joyful shrieks filling the air. Emily sat on the porch, her eyes soft as she watched them, a quiet smile on her lips. The sight made Ethan's chest tighten with something he was still learning to name. Happiness. He had spent his life chasing things that didn't matter, drowning himself in business deals, wealth, and power, but none of it had ever filled the void inside him. Not the endless meetings, not the luxurious lifestyle, not even the temporary distractions that had once occupied his nights. But this was different. This was real. Emily looked up and caught him staring. "You're thinking too hard again," she teased. Ethan chuckled, shaking his head as he walked over and sat beside her, just taking it all in. Emily studied him for a moment, her expression softening. "You're different now." He turned to her, his gaze steady. "Because I finally know what I want." She raised an eyebrow. "Oh, and what's that?" Ethan reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers. "This, you, them, us." Emily's breath hitched slightly. But she didn't pull away. I was so afraid to believe in this. Ethan exhaled, tightening his grip. I know. And I'll spend every day proving that you can. A comfortable silence settled between them as they watched the girls chase each other. Their carefree laughter a stark contrast to the struggles they had once faced. Sophie told me yesterday that she doesn't remember what it feels like to be afraid of tomorrow anymore. Emily murmured. Ethan swallowed hard. She doesn't have to. Not ever again. Emily turned to him, her gaze filled with something he hadn't seen in years, trust. A week later, they stood in front of a judge as Ethan legally adopted Lily and Sophie. Emily held his hand tightly as the judge read through the final documents, her grip trembling slightly. This was it, the final step in solidifying the family they had built, in erasing any doubt that the girls would ever be alone again. Congratulations, Mr. Montgomery, the judge said, stamping the final document. You are now officially Lily and Sophie's father. Ethan's chest tightened. He had spent his whole life signing contracts, sealing deals worth billions, but no signature had ever meant more to him than this one. Sophie beamed, throwing her arms around him. Does this mean we get to call you Dad now? Ethan knelt down, his hands resting on her small shoulders. Only if you want to. Sophie giggled. I've been calling you that in my head for weeks. Ethan let out a choked laugh, hugging her tightly. When he looked up, Lily stood slightly apart, her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. For a moment, fear crept into Ethan's chest. Had he pushed too fast? Expected too much? Then, slowly, Lily walked over and looked him straight in the eye. I've spent my whole life not needing anyone, she admitted quietly. But if I ever did, I guess you'd be okay. Ethan swallowed hard, feeling his throat tighten. I'll take that. Lily rolled her eyes but let a small smirk slip through. Don't get too excited, old man. Ethan laughed, ruffling her hair as she groaned in protest. Too late. Emily wiped at her eyes, her smile trembling as she took Ethan's hand in hers. We did it. Ethan squeezed her fingers. Yeah, we did. That night, as the four of them sat around the dinner table, something inside Ethan settled. This was what he had been searching for all along. Not wealth, not power, not control. Family. Lily and Sophie bickered over who got the last piece of garlic bread. Emily laughed as she tried to referee. And Ethan simply sat back and let the moment sink in. He wasn't alone anymore. And neither were they. Hey, girls, Ethan said suddenly, gaining their attention. Sophie looked up, her mouth full of food. Yeah? Lily raised an eyebrow. What? Ethan glanced at Emily, who nodded knowingly before he turned back to them. How do you feel about having a wedding? Sophie gasped. A real one? Lily smirked. About time. Emily chuckled, shaking her head. They're impossible. Ethan just grinned. And they're ours. As the night carried on, laughter and warmth filled the Montgomery estate. It was no longer a place of emptiness and echoes. It was home. And Ethan Montgomery, a man who once had everything but felt nothing, had finally found the one thing he never knew he needed. Love. If this story has touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Millionaire Love Stories. Have love and resilience ever changed your life? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your story. Subscribe for more stories of love, transformation, and the power of connection. Together, let's believe in the magic of love.